This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. Finally, this is the podcast every day in August. I almost messed up in saying April, but because I love this platform and I'm a creative, we are here to do what we do, and that is create content. So if you are not a follower or not a listener, please check me out on all podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Acast, Overcast, Stitcher, every podcast platform you can think of. This podcast is there. Continue listening. And this is The Past BT with your host, Brian, aka BT. What's going on, y'all? What's good? Episode 293 of The Past is here. I am your host, BT. I am not here to give you a lot of fuddy-duddy, nothing extracurricular, just a straight shot, to the point, simple show about the podcast being distributed. I was somewhat caught in a unique place in realizing that when my podcast uploaded, it had been on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now, if you've been listening, if you go back and listen to any of my weekly shows when I do my sports, my stuff, even the last couple of shows I've had with Ramona and with Wyatt, you do hear that I talk about everywhere that the podcast is distributed. Well, after further review, it turned out that I had not actually gone through the stages of getting the show distributed to its proper platforms. So here we are. I am now able to say that the show has gotten on a few more platforms than I expected. So now you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Pod Chaser, Deezer, Listen Notes. And as of right now, I am in the process of getting the show uploaded to Amazon Music or Audible, which is coming soon. It will be on iHeartRadio. It will be also on Pandora. And finally, it will be on TuneIn. And I hope mine does not turn on Alexa. Okay, cool. By the way, if you own any Alexa devices, my bad, because I know how fun and annoying it can be for that to start up unallowed or unrequested. Someone gave me this tip a couple of years ago, actually, and it's been a tip that I've strongly lived by, which is, if you do plan to record near a smart device, it is in your smartest interest to turn off that device from picking up any audio in the event that you could set it off during your show. Because I've done it, and I would set up the other one, but I think for the most part we should be good with it playing nice today. But I did want to take time and at least acknowledge the podcast being on those platforms, or being in the process of being on those platforms. So if you are looking for The Past BT on any of those platforms, it is there. I will definitely do like I normally do, which is get a screenshot and share each of those or distribute it amongst those various platforms. I'm not going to do any metric breakdown today for The Past, but I will say that I do like the direction that the podcast has flowed since being on this platform. I have increased my recording time by quite a bit. It's a different, and this is me being a little transparent with the podcast because it's new. It's still a little new to me, but it's enjoyable. With the platform that I'm on, I have a broader listener. A broader recording queue on Buzzsprout than I did on Spotify. On Spreaker. So with Spreaker, you were given the option of you would record. Usually I was like you were given up to 3 hours per episode. Like every episode, it didn't matter what you were recording. Your cutoff time was 3 hours. Now, anyone that knows me knew I was never going to hit a 3 hour point with my podcast. That being said, you also had a certain amount of storage and or space you were limited to for your recording. Cool, fine, no big deal, no stress, no frill. Buzzsprout, on the other hand, has plans, and each plan works differently to your advantage. You have the free version, which gives you 2 hours a month. Then you have the option for $12 a month, which gives you 3 hours a month. Then you have the 6 hour option for $18 a month. And then you have 12 hours for $24 a month. Now, what changes between each of those plans is if you have the free version, your episode stays online for 90 days. So let's say I record this show today. 90 days from now, that show is gone. With the other plans, any of the paid plans, you actually have the show to remain on the platform forever, as long as you're making your monthly payments. I have seen or known people who have been doing other hosting options of getting their shows online. Totally fine. There's no right or wrong way to get it achieved. I say this to anyone: find your avenue and find your way that works for you on getting your show distributed. I don't know how much I can emphasize that. Between Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Spreaker, I'm trying to think of any other. I don't know. I'm sitting here want to say Bluehost, but Bluehost is the actual web hosting service. There are some other ones. Hang on a second so I can make sure I name all of them that I knew. Podbean, Blueberry. Blueberry is a very well-known one. SoundCloud, can't forget them. But using these different options can work for different people because the main factor you're looking at is you want to utilize the platform, get your RSS feed, and distribute it across your different media outlets, such as, as I mentioned already, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all of those different brands. So with all of that, just to kind of wrap up, I'm doing this as a update, but also as a semi announcement because I realized that my show had only been on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, now all of your major podcast platforms, the show is there, and I will be, doing my usual part of going online, doing the research to see if it's out there and sharing that with the masses so that fellow podcasters can, utilize the source or the option that works for them on how they listen to podcasts. So not really a lot to share today, but I just wanted to, at least as Baloo gets in his bag in vintage recording fashion, we just are going to rock out here. And that is all we have for this show today. Until next time, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Hey, y'all, we made it through another show, man. Hope y'all got through it. Hope y'all learned something, gained some new information, either about myself and or about podcasting. If you're looking to invest in podcasting, I have different ways of giving you the information and the tools to get you to the right direction with podding. I'm currently I've currently switched from anyone who remembers. I've been on Spreaker for years. I am a newborn in the Buzzsprout community, and I would definitely say it is one of my faves to use. And also, when it comes to audio, you do not need the most expensive microphone. All you need is a microphone that can catch your voice and can gather your words. So with that being said, this is The Past. I am your host, PT. Hope y'all enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back to do this again next time.